Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of The Weekly Wizard. And today I'm joined by Kofi. Kofi is a like Dune OG wizard. He has been around since I don't know when was your first query on Dune, Kofi?
My first query on Dune, I feel like it was, uh, it was actually not that long ago because it was February 2021, actually. So I'd been doing kind of crunching numbers around specifically the NFT space and stuff before that. But February was when I really started using Dune on a regular basis, I think.
Yeah, yeah, but that's still ancient for most of the people who are using Dune nowadays. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really happy to get the chance to talk to you. I really appreciate it that you're taking time to appear in here and I don't know, share a bit of your wizard story, share your thoughts on the market and everything like that. So I don't know, like, do you want to? Yeah, please introduce yourself quickly.
Yeah, so I am a big on-chain analysis data nerd. I currently work at a venture firm called One Confirmation, where we invest in early stage crypto startups. Um, Made that jump into full-time crypto last year, and yeah, really happy to get to obsess over the space full time. Um, and I write kind of a weekly newsletter on NFT market data specifically, which Dune has been super helpful with, and was actually the reason why I first got into using Dune. Um, yeah, that's a bit of background on me.
Cool. Um, so I thought it would be interesting to dig a bit into like what was your thinking around starting this newsletter. I guess you started it around like December 2020, even earlier. Like NFTs weren't even a
Yeah,
thing back then, and like you were the only one. Like I'm just gonna like go on the chain and like actually grab this data. Like what like are you like a data driven person in general, and that was like your approach to like understand the space, or like what's the story here?
yeah. So I mean, I guess, to give full context, I first got into crypto in 2017. I was doing uni in Edinburgh. I'd moved from Ghana to Edinburgh to go to university in 2015. And in 2017, I came home one day and two of my friends were mining Ethereum out of our flat. So that was, they bought all these graphics cards using their student loan money, and like that was my first introduction to Ethereum. Um, and it was also kind of around that time that I started getting interested in kind of data analytics stuff, although I wasn't doing on-chain analytics yet. I took some Python for data science courses online, and then I was using those skills in like internships and stuff. And when I finished my degree, I was finishing my master's. I did a lot of Python for data science stuff because I wrote my dissertation. It was a machine learning dissertation. I was doing like a computer vision model thing. So yeah, did a lot of data analysis for that. After I graduated, I was working for the university as a researcher, kind of writing a paper on the same uh, computer vision topic I'd been doing my dissertation. So kind of in all that time, that was first how I got introduced to crypto, and then also when I started getting into data analysis and decided that that was a thing that I wanted to kind of spend a lot of time on. And then those two separate things kind of came together end of 2020 because I'd been following the crypto space since 2017, but I'd really, what's the word, kind of missed the whole end of 2017 run up. We all remember the price of ETH jumped like 10,000%. Those friends of mine who were mining ETH made a bunch of money, and like had like a great like road trip through Asia, whatever, paid for by all of the mining expenses. And I kind of missed that entire jump. So, and I think that a lot of people are like that. They kind of miss their first
Or they
wave
got brutally
because,
wrecked. Like
or
I
they get
think there's
brutally
a lot of
raped,
I
they
think
just
there's a
get
lot.
totally wrecked.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, if you're not like an insane person, most people kind of are too conservative the first time around. So I was too conservative the first time around. Um, but then kind of late 2020, I started to kind of see excitement bubble up around NFTs, around Nifty Gateway. and all of that stuff. And it really kind of like it was almost like a piece of a puzzle kind of fitting into the jigsaw for me. That was like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. Like, cryptocurrencies like encompass this entire financial world. Now it's kind of like putting everything else on the blockchain. Like, first all of this cultural and artistic stuff, but it's just kind of like, but the vast majority of things in the world are non-fungible. It just kind of made sense that NFTs were going to be huge, and I've always been a bit of I'm not an artist, but I've always been like a huge fan of art. So it seems like a nice intersection of things I was interested in. So I was really excited about NFTs, and I started paying attention to that. And initially, I was just crunching numbers to kind of figure out what was going on for myself, to kind of figure out, hey, where can I get into all of this stuff so I don't get left behind this time, sort of mindset. Um, and I didn't know about Dune initially, so I was going through a bunch of effort, like writing Python scripts to scrape websites like Scrape Nifty Gateway and stuff to get information on collections and
It's
sales
like
data and
that's
all
like
of that.
that's the wrong way around. It's like it's all on chain, and you're
Right.
going to the website, which is actually just grabbing stuff from. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I was the other way
Yeah,
around, man. It was a mess. I was scraping, because the thing is that it was all on chain, but it's the unfortunate thing that the fact that everything on chain is, in my eyes, one of, the best thing about the blockchain space. It's like the most underrated, cryptocurrencies are great, NFTs are great, DAOs are amazing, all of this stuff is amazing. But just the fact that everything is fully transparent is, like, I think the greatest advantage that this industry has. But before tools like Dune it came into play, it just wasn't really accessible to really go and check out all of that stuff. So yeah, I was doing scrapers, and even at some points, if I couldn't figure out how to write a scraper for something, I was like manually, like I was doing manual entry of stuff. I was making Excel spreadsheets and copying numbers. It was ridiculous looking back, just kind of the hours I would spend doing stuff like that. Um, so when I first found out about Dune, kind of beginning of 2021, that was like, you know, yeah, that was awesome for me because that kind of liberated me a bit. And that was around the same time that I was making the decision that, like, hey, I'm doing all of this analysis for myself, but it doesn't seem like anybody else knows what's going on. Everybody else also seems confused. So maybe people will find it valuable if I share some of the stuff that I'm seeing. Um, and so I started, I didn't even have a newsletter at first. I was just posting the stuff on Reddit.
Hmm.
I was just posting, kind of Reddit articles, and some of them would blow up and some of them didn't. And then I was like, oh, this is dumb because with if you post something on Reddit, you might get some karma, but people don't really come back and like follow your content the way that they do on Twitter
Yeah.
or with the newsletter. So I was like, I need to find a way to kind of capture people long term, and so that was when I started doing Twitter and the newsletter. Yeah.
And it's I think what stands out to me here is that like you had like a little bit of skills in like all of these different like fields, and like you had a little bit of art knowledge, a little bit of like maybe a bit of data science knowledge. Like I don't fully know about your background, and then like some blockchain knowledge, and basically like you had like this Venn diagram of like, hey, what can I do, and like you were like the perfect middle was like what you started doing basically. And I think that's actually like a thing that you can absorb like very often in crypto because there's so many niches that are yet to be filled. So that's a like very interesting story to hear that's also the case for you. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yep,
I totally agree. Super lucky in that. I feel like, yeah, most people don't get kind of opportunities to, yeah, find the niche that perfectly interlines, with all of their interests and stuff. So yeah, NFT data, to start was that for me, and now like it's like opened all of these doors in terms of, it was through that I discovered DeFi, and it was through that I discovered DAOs and cross-chain infrastructure and all of this other stuff that I'm now obsessed with. So yeah, great gateway into like all the rest of the blockchain space.
Yeah. And what was your thinking about like starting this newsletter? Were you just like, hey, I'm gonna like start building a public good, or was it like, hey, let's like try to see if we can make this into business? Like what like I'm just interested in your like line of thinking here.
Yeah, so I wish I could say that I had a good plan. I didn't. It was more along the lines of, um, I knew that the NFT space was going to be a super important space. In fact, like slightly controversial take, but one of the things that I honestly do believe is that like on a 10-year time scale, I wouldn't be surprised if like the market cap of NFTs one day like approaches and even like flippins the market cap of cryptocurrencies. Some people might think that that's a bit optimistic, but I do think that it one once we kind of move past it being like a niche that's like really loved by a small and passionate community to being like one of the main business models of creative content on the internet, I think that that becomes quite possible. But I saw that it was really important, and I didn't have an idea for a startup, and I didn't know that I was eventually going to move into working in VC like I did now. So I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that kind of proving that I had specific knowledge in the space and kind of building an audience and yeah, just kind of giving evidence of expertise and kind of building an audience would mean that when I finally did figure out what I was going to do, then I would have built like I would have created a bit of a foundation for myself in terms of I wouldn't just be some random stranger starting a startup or trying to get into VC or whatever it was. People would know who I was and kind of be like, yeah, that guy, he knows what he's talking about. He's not just some random stranger who showed up yesterday, some tourist. So yeah, um, it was more along the lines of I didn't have a plan, but I wanted to share and have and add value so that when I did have a plan, that would be a help in that.
Yeah, so you're basically just hustling. It's like
Always, always.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the grind, and I think a lot of people can probably like, even if you don't know like where you want to end up, like it's always good to just like take step after step and like just start walking somewhere, even if you don't know where you'll end up. Like I think like that's a story that I'm hearing a lot in the space, that people just like, yeah, I just like started doing stuff and like people took notice of me, and now I'm like in some like great position and it's my dream job. And it's like you like hear those stories like super often, because like I think like with you, like it stands out that you were just basically following your curiosity. Like you were just like, hey, this is like super interesting. I'm like super bullish on like NFTs and like whatever is happening here, and like that, let's just do something. And I think that's a very like um I don't know, it's a beautiful story in some kind of like in some kind of sense. And
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, I totally agree. I feel like I've also heard a lot of people have very similar stories because the thing is that the space is still so small. We always talk about it's early. But when we talk about it being early, one of the indicators that things are still early is that if you really do just kind of put in the work on a regular basis and kind of, you put value out there, like there are still so few people heavily involved that in the space that like someone will pay attention eventually, like whether that's you're organizing communities or you're doing data analysis or you're building apps or whatever it is. Like if you're consistently adding value, it's still so early on that you're not just going to get lost in the masses. Like right now, say that you wanted to like start like I don't know, a food recipe YouTube channel. Like chances are no one is ever going to find your stuff. If food recipes on YouTube, that's like a decade old. Like that's late. Like no one is going to notice you. But in this space, like it is one of the advantages of being early is that we are still genuinely in a position where if you're interested and you're like making good stuff and you're making sure to let other people know that you're making good stuff, that can open up really great opportunities, and it's a thing that you see again and again. So I definitely do think that a lot of people who are interested in like getting involved in crypto, who aren't sure where to start should really, kind of hone in on whatever it is that you're most interested in the space. Just like start producing output of some sort around that on a very consistent, like a weekly basis or whatever, and share it. And it will take like it might take months, it might take like a year plus or something like that. But this is a repeatable, like it's a very repeatable formula. Because I know lots of people who've gotten life-changing opportunities through that model.
Yeah, I can only agree. Like from what I'm seeing from the community, like even your story is like hugely like it's a like you're waving the flag up there basically. It's a great model to follow, and yeah, I can advise anyone to basically do this. So yeah, that was like your history. I think the story like the story ends with you like, or like the story like it's just starting, but now you're like partner at the VC, I guess. And like I don't know how much you want to talk about that, but I just think it's great to see that like you as like a member of the community and like somebody who's just like was on the ground levels before is now like actually like, and I still see you on the like ground level. Sound dismissive, like you're actually like you are in like Twitter spaces and everything. So I think that's a really like I really like that you are not like the suit VC guy. Like you're still like you're like you're not the Frog Nation either. Like you're a wizard.
Yeah, no, I totally, I'm definitely not like, spent 5 years at Bain and then I don't know, raised at A16Z or like some, I'm not like, a tradition, like some long tier traditional VC suit person. And I think that that's a great thing because a lot of the a lot of the work that I do in my current job is around like, you know, identifying teams that are like building great products in like, theories and like fields that we're interested in, and just like having conversations with people, like just reaching out, figuring out what people are doing, helping them however I can, which, using Dune a lot to help people with data analytics, is kind of part of what I'm able to offer people. And yeah, that's just a lot of like really just normal on the ground kind of community work. And I feel like, yeah, just being engaged in the community, kind of knowing everybody who's doing everything and helping out wherever you can, and doing Twitter spaces and all of that stuff. Is hugely like advantageous as opposed to I don't know, kind of maybe being a bit too prideful or kind of being removed from what's actually going on the ground level. So yeah, I think that it's worked out really really well for me. Just kind of staying plugged in to the constant fire hose of 17 different discords and everything that's happening on Twitter, and yeah, just being engaged all the time, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like now that you're full time, like how like what's your information diet like? Like do you follow like any strict rules? Like I'm only on Twitter like for a few hours a day, or like are you just like give me all the stuff?
Yeah, I wish that I had a strict information diet. It would probably be better, like for for my life if I did. But I mean, my information diet is really, and anybody who kind of looks at my Twitter account will kind of notice that I don't really follow that many people. Like I don't fully understand how like some people can follow like 15,000 accounts, and I'm like, are there really 15,000 accounts that you feel are actually giving you useful high signal information about what's happening in the space, like actually interesting stuff? And I'm like, I don't really. So I mean, I really, now it's a bit more, but I generally have like maybe 100 or less people who I really feel genuinely understand what's going on in, say, um, DeFi or NFTs or DAOs or like certain ecosystems I'm excited about, like the Cosmos ecosystem or the Polkadot ecosystem, who I think are really kind of engaged in building and share good information. And so I really try and curate my Twitter feed around those high signal people and try and not kind of get caught up in too much, just kind of Twitter drama type stuff. Always looking for high signal, and then just kind of always kind of paying attention to all the different Telegram groups and Discord groups. A lot of people who are listening to this are probably already subscribed on Telegram to the Daily Ape newsletter. That I think is a great newsletter. There's the DeFi Prime newsletter. There are some great groups like Lobster DAO on Telegram is a good group for just people kind of chatting about what's going on in the DeFi space. Although with groups like that, I always have the issue that either you don't look for a day and then you look back and there are 700 missed messages and you're like, I'm never gonna read all of these missed messages. It's not happening. But you try and keep up best as you can. And then on Discord, like I'm in the Discords of of course all of the portfolio companies that One Confirmation has invested in, and then also like all of the teams that I think are maybe we haven't invested in yet, but they're building really interesting stuff, and I just want to keep track of what's going on. So my Discord is also a mess. I always need to, every day coming in, just like deleting 15 spam messages and then looking at 100 missed notifications again. But yeah, that's kind of what my information diet looks like at the moment.
It's a big buffet.
Yeah, it's a big buffet. So yeah, it's definitely, there's a ton of stuff to try and keep up with there, but a lot of I do spend a lot of time actively, not just kind of passively consuming stuff, but like actively based on some thesis that I have or that we have as a group, just kind of actively doing research into who's doing what and actively reaching out to people and engaging in those conversations. That's that's kind of how keeping track of everything usually goes for me. It does help if you have clear frameworks for what it is that you're interested in. Like one example would be I might say that these are some ecosystems that I think are very interesting. Like I think that decentralized file storage, for instance, IPFS and Arweave are really important critical infrastructures in the space. And maybe the first best thing is like to invest in that ecosystem, so maybe to buy some Arweave coin or whatever it is. And then the second best thing is who are the people who are really building like really essential tools that help teams to to interact with IPFS and Arweave, whether that's managing all of their data storage or bundling certain processes and all of that. And if I decide that that's a framework in which I'm really interested, like what's the ecosystem and what's the critical infrastructure, let's reach out to everybody who's building critical infrastructure, then that helps to structure my thinking, because then I can create a list of ecosystems and critical infrastructure that has to do with those ecosystems and start reaching out and doing all of that. So yeah, it's easy to get overwhelmed by all of the information that by all of the information that gets thrown at you in the space. So it's good to it's good to kind of structure, have some frameworks for knowing what is important to you and what is just like casual by the wayside type stuff.
Yeah, that was a very interesting insight into like, I think especially like having a thesis and a framework. Like I think lots of like retail investors, and me included, like we're just aping around, man. Like there's some shiny thing. Like let's fucking go. That's that's really interesting. And I guess this is I'm so smooth, like such a smooth segue now. Like how is like on-chain data actually like how relevant is on-chain data for you guys? Like do you observe like for example, like I know that a partner at one confirmation, Richard Chen, like he has built this like awesome OpenSea dashboard that is referenced. Like it's probably like been cited in scientific papers in the meanwhile. Like
Yeah,
it's pretty
yeah.
insane. It's pretty insane the reach that he's achieved with that. And like I just want to like do you
And
guys like
also, I added the Polygon data part
oh
of that
yeah, you're
dashboard.
part of it
We
as well,
want to
right?
point out.
Like
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
So just also me, being smooth with my plugging myself slightly in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good point. We definitely look at on-chain analytics a lot. I mean, um, first in the kind of the from the perspective of supporting teams who either we're investing in or that we think are building really great stuff. We build dashboards all the time. Like for instance, one team that I think is building super interesting infrastructure at the moment is this a startup called Glass. They're working on decentralized video infrastructure
Yeah.
and then helping video creators monetize through NFTs. And last week they released a new protocol on the Glass called Prism, where it's like NFT editions but on a bonding curve. So the contract holds funds, and as people buy and the price of the edition goes up according to the curve, and then you'll always be able to sell an NFT back to the contract. So if you buy an NFT, a bunch of people buy, and the price goes up, you can instantly sell that NFT back to the contract at the higher price. If the price goes down, you can instantly sell back. So it's kind of helping to solve
is there a
the
supply cap?
liquidity. Yeah, there's a supply cap.
Okay.
So you can always buy and you can always sell. Well, up until like the supply runs out, you can't buy then. But it's an interesting protocol that they're working on. So we haven't invested in them yet, but I quickly made a dashboard about Prism. Kind of what the trading volume was and who the top collectors were, and they found that super useful, and they were sharing that on Twitter. So it's like we like to be able to add value to people through that on-chain analytics perspective, and then kind of looking at the industry in general. Sometimes there might be um, you know a question that we might want to answer for ourselves to figure out whether or not something is important, and we might do some on-chain analytics for that. So maybe you might have a question of um, uh, uh, something along the lines of what is the is kind of metaverse land still trying to like come up with like a thesis around like a framework for thinking about kind of metaverse land, for example. What's going on in metaverse land right now? Like what percentage of the NFT market is that, and who are the major players in that space, and what's the distribution like? Is it just like a few whales that are controlling this entire market, or is there like an even distribution of kind of lots of small passionate retail involved, and kind of then you might do some analytics to kind of see what's going on there. So yeah, we definitely use on-chain analytics a lot to support people, but then also to kind of answer our own questions.
I see. And like in terms of like just general like if you look at like Richard Chen's like dashboard in terms of like OpenSea daily volume or like weekly volume, that's something that you guys try to pick up on, or are you like fundamentally like more long-term investors and you're like whatever, like the volume rises a bit and like this only matters to us if we like get into a like month-long basically like rise of volumes or something like that? Like I don't know, like you probably don't have like any trading. Like I've never heard that one confirmation does short-term stuff, but I could
Yeah,
be.
we don't do any kind of we're not traders. It is very much like a very traditional VC framework of mostly investing in early stage kind of seed rounds, and looking to support those teams over like, it's kind of looking for returns on a 10-year time scale as opposed to, trying to do some quick flips and stuff. And I think that that's an important kind of distinction, because I feel like kind of on crypto Twitter and stuff, there's almost like a lot of confusion that's created by the fact that there are lots of influencers and lots of traders who kind of laugh as VCs or like call themselves VCs, or like even, hedge funds that call themselves VCs. And so, you get kind of confusion around people saying stuff like, all VCs are just kind of just get some token and then dump in a month's time on retail or whatever. And it's like, if somebody is doing that, then that's probably not actually a real VC firm, because real VC firms have like structures where, you kind of raise money from LPs, and there is a structure, whereby, you've kind of legally kind of promised LPs that you're going to deploy capital over this number of years, and you're looking for returns over like this kind of number of years time span. Yeah, it's not really. It's definitely not thinking about things on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. Now, like as somebody who is like, constantly paying attention to the space, kind of, personally, like I do pay attention to what's going on, because that's kind of, personally, what I'm interested in. But that's not what kind of shapes our decisions, like as a fund. But yeah, I mean, talking about like the OpenSea Dune dashboard, I mean, it's crazy to kind of watch. I mean, also to kind of point out, there's like bias here, because one confirmation led the seed round of OpenSea. So kind of showing
Just
bags here.
full disclosure.
Full disclosure, shilling bags.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2021. I mean, obviously, 2021 was the year that things took off. But I mean, even if you kind of look at the earlier part of those charts, kind of the monthly volume charts for OpenSea, before 2021, they're pretty much invisible now, because 2021 volumes are so high.
Yeah.
But even in those earlier years, there was like really strong growth in terms of, 2020, OpenSea went from like sub-million trading volume to like 8 million, like almost 10 million trading volume. So there was, volume was already kind of, growing like 100%, growing 1,000% year over year. And so that's it's interesting, because that's how, you kind of get these crazy charts that like anything that's like growing thousands of percent year over year is gonna like start off looking like it's nothing, and eventually like catapult into the future.
Yep.
And kind of looking at this year, yeah, so the super interesting trends there. I mean, obviously, we kind of have the first kind of peak in in activity around March, around the Beeple sale, and there's like there's at the time big spike. Now it looks like a tiny spike, but at the time big spike in March, and then in kind of around August time, things go fully parabolic. Like this time, no longer talking about what's the word? No longer talking about hundreds of millions, but now like crossing into the billions, as like more and more trading activity is driven by the popularity of art blocks and the popularity of the most of the top tier PFP collections. Talking about Bored Ape Yacht Club, going parabolic, and CryptoPunks, of course, as always, going parabolic. So yeah, I'm always kind of fascinated to kind of see how that progression happens and kind of what the drivers are there. And with the kind of important caveat always being that there is like a strong power law always in the NFT market. I mean, if you pull up kind of the Dune NFT trades structured table, and you kind of look at NFT projects kind of sorting by trading volume, some of amount or whatever. Actually, well, I might be useful. I could share my screen,
Oh,
to
yeah,
kind of
that would be great. I guess
Yeah.
because I know a lot of things on Dune, but that dashboard is not in my mind currently. Like
Yeah.
yeah, but the power law, yeah, I really agree with. Like it's amazing to see how much volume is driven um by only a few things basically.
But yeah, can you see my screen right now?
Yes,
Did that
yes,
did
that
that
works.
work? Seems like it might not have worked.
No, it works. It's just Discord stops it to save on data
Okay.
or something.
Yeah, so kind of looking at the OpenSea charts, I was talking about that first blip in March and then how in August things go parabolic. But then also kind of pulling up like NFT projects and the volume. There is a power law there. We kind of see like at the top end you have projects like CryptoPunks and Bored Ape Yacht Club where the total trading volumes are along the lines of billions and billions of US dollars total trading volume. But if you like go down to the past the top 100, then you're falling down all the way from billions to single digit millions, which is like a huge. This is like you know um, the top end, like the top end of like the top 100 is like 1,000x greater trading volumes than like
Yeah.
projects that are outside of the top 100. So there is like a massive power law kind of happening there. But yeah, always super interested to kind of see um how that kind of plays out. I know is an interesting thing that I look at as well, and kind of right before this, I thought it would be interesting to, unlike I saw unlike Dobby's kind of episode last week, I didn't make like a very pretty dashboard because I was doing this literally right before we went on. But I felt that one interesting thing to kind of pull up was kind of talking about categories in the NFT space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I mean, last year, like one of like at the end, like of December, one of the things that I did was kind of, uh, I spent like like a few days kind of doing some manual like categorization of like NFT of kind of the top trading NFT contracts according to like categories that I thought were the biggest categories. Um, so I mean, even if you like open up like a query like this volume query, you'll really just see that like it's just a list, just a list of contracts. So that was a dumb but fun somewhat thing. That was like
Yeah.
a mind numbing exercise, but like I thought was an important kind of exercise to do to kind of figure out really what the lay of the land was. But kind of looking at kind of trading on of NFTs on Ethereum, um, kind of the way that I think about it right now is that um, there are lots of categories that are still yet to emerge,
Mm-hmm.
that are still like their time is going to shine. But like right now, of course, the top categories are looking at profile picture NFTs. So talking about the Bored Ape Yacht Clubs and the CryptoPunks, where you have the collection of like it might be 10K NFTs that are all the same art style but have different traits. And the appeal there for people is that all of these projects have a bit of a community in the holder base, but and kind of are building. It's almost like they're building brands from the ground up. But people also just kind of enjoy the game of flipping. Trying to get something that has good traits of flipping. Like let's not pretend. But yeah, PFPs definitely had the greatest activity last year. Kind of looking at volumes in 2021 in the range of like 8 billion
Mm-hmm.
plus, and that was like the highest kind of um, like level of success of any of the categories. And then the next thing that I kind of look at is like cultural collectibles. So in cultural collectibles, I would put all of the collectibles that aren't profile pictures. So then we're talking about things like music and photography and sports cards and all of these other things where it's kind of like, these are all collector's items in the same way that like physical sports cards or whatever collector's items, but just the digital versions of those. And kind of 2021, we're again seeing that kind of trend where August was the month where like really everything took off, and then there's kind of a peak in March. But that was kind of the second biggest, with like volume kind of reaching above 3 billion. And then there's visual art, which is the oldest of any of these categories, and was the third largest in terms of activity last year. And I would put under that, all of the creators who would really like kind of classify themselves as artists, who like are making digital art, and now because of the fact that they have a way of like selling a unique copy of their work, are like having a new business model for themselves. And so into that I would include everybody who's selling on platforms like Super Rare and Foundation and Maker's Place and Known Origin. And then I also included some custom contracts in there as well. And I also included art blocks in visual art. I feel like some people might say that art blocks are also kind of collectibles, but I kind of, in my opinion, class them as being more of an art than a collectible. But that might be controversial to some people. But also in terms of trading volume, again, multiple billions.
I guess
Reaching
there's
to
so many different art blocks like styles and like different like sub projects that it's like very hard to like broadly make a categorization. But in general, like visual, like it both seems fair. So I don't know. You as the analyst are free to choose here, I guess.
Yeah, it's subjective, and there's always kind of choice there in terms of uh, everything that's not on chain. Like something like a trading volume is not subjective. Like that's either true or that's not. But in terms of categorization, if you're going to categorize things, then that's totally up to you. So I mean, there are those three, and then of course the fourth biggest category of last year was gaming. Unfortunately, can't really show that on a dashboard like this, because this is like an Ethereum mainnet dashboard, and Ethereum mainnet is the worst place to do a gaming project, because if you want to mint millions of disposable items, that's just very expensive. If you want to do like a bunch of on-chain kind of game actions, that's super expensive. But I mean, I felt like it would make sense to kind of bring up the Elias's bridge dashboard, his glorious bridge dashboard, to kind of point out that the Ronin bridge, Ronin is the side chain that Axie Infinity, which is the largest NFT based game in existence, lives on Ronin. Ronin has seen, in the range of 3.5 billion US dollars bridged over to Ronin. So that is like insane, activity. Just kind of, if that one game alone is like that, the amount of assets that are being bridged over like rivals like the entire trading volume of of like cultural collectibles, like more volume than we saw in NFT art last year, like just for that one game. And then of course there's a power law there, because Axie Infinity is the biggest with billions and billions of dollars in activity. The next biggest game, that's NFT based, whether you're talking about Avagotchi or whatever, is like in the millions, so much lower than that. So Axie gaming is huge, but so far Axie has really been the bulk of that. And it will be interesting to see that now that there's been so much investment and so much activity in the gaming space, it will be interesting to see when those new games come alive a few years from now, like how many of them like live up to Axie style, Axie levels of activity, and kind of how how sustainable that is. And which I think that there will be that Axie's in there, and I think that there will be many Axie level successes in the Web3 gaming space. But these are all kind of things that I like to kind of pay attention to those trends. Not even like from a fun perspective per se, but just kind of in my own kind of curiosity to keep track of like what's going on in the NFT space, and kind of what's going on with trends and with categories and all of that.
To contextualize information basically. Like
Yeah.
if you like see anything, like you, it always needs to be in context. And I think like that the on-chain data really helps you, or like just like data in general. Like you can go to the blog as well. Like it's like it works really well. Just to like basically educate yourself about space, and not just like listen to the voices on crypto Twitter and be like, hey, like let's just ape into like whatever they're saying, and like they say number go up, so I think number go up, and they say number go down, and like that's not the way like anyone should behave in this market. And it's like the beauty of like having all this data like publicly accessible on all these different platforms, and especially on Dune, because you can dig like really deep down into like these singular protocols. Like of course other like platforms might give you like an overview, but like on Dune you can really dig down into like into single transactions basically. Like you can visualize single transactions like inside of these charts. And I think that's just I mean, most of the time you don't need like the granularity of a single transaction, but like actually like aggregating those single transactions into then like showing something useful. I think it's a like yeah, it's a superpower in the space basically. Like everybody's tapping in the dark, and like especially like yeah, like I think a lot of people are honestly tapping in the dark. Like even some of the OGs, like they are not like inside of the data. Like maybe they're more like narrative driven traders or investors or whatever. And I like that's a good path to go down as well. But it's honestly amazing sometimes when you're thinking like, hey, like what is actually like I was just thinking like, can you open the bridge away dashboard real quick?
Yeah.
And like
Just kind of opening. Yeah. Bridge away.
so it's like we see the Ronin chain there, and the Ronin chain doesn't even include like the NFTs that are bridged over to Ronin. It's just
Yeah.
it's just like the tokens that have been bridged over to Ronin. So it's like nobody knows like how many. I guess the Axie team knows, and like some like very fringe like a small group of people might know, but it's like it's mostly a black box. And it's really like it's pretty amazing that the space functions like this well or like unwell. Like it's like depending on the day of the week. Like I'm thinking like, oh,
Yeah.
this market is so efficient, and then the next moment you're like, oh man, like what is happening here? Like so yeah, it's really a superpower to gain more context and like to check on things personally. And yeah, I like it's interesting to see how you think about this as well.
Yeah. I totally agree, because it's one of those things where, kind of talking about people walking in the dark, there is so much of that in terms of folk making financial decisions based on like things that they hear on Twitter and on Discord, despite the fact that, if somebody is sharing alpha, quote unquote alpha, on Twitter or on Discord, uh it's probably not alpha. Like if you're hearing it at the same time as the entire rest of the world is
Yeah,
hearing it,
yeah,
it's probably not alpha. And actually, in the worst case, it might just be that somebody is like just feeding you a tiny bit of information so that they can more effectively dump their bags on you, to be honest.
yep,
And so it's kind of, yeah, on-chain data is really interesting, because on-chain data means that, as opposed to somebody just feeding you information when and as best convenient to them, you can go out and, like, if you have a question or you have a theory, you can go and answer some questions for yourself, and kind of make decisions based on that in a way that is unbiased. Um, which I think makes a lot of sense for lots of people, because we kind of talk about people who do kind of narrative driven trading. I don't think that most people are good at narrative driven trading. I feel like maybe that might work out for like some folk who like have long histories of trading in different markets, and are super plugged into everything that's going on in this space full time. But I feel like that doesn't describe most retail investors. So most retail investors who like might see narrative traders doing super well on Twitter or whatever, and don't see anybody failing, because people who fail don't tweet about it,
yep.
might think that that's a great path for me. I'll do that, and just end up getting wrecked, because that's not really that doesn't really work for most people. But you could using things like on-chain data, you can, what's the word? You can actually look at the fundamentals of things and kind of make decisions for yourself about like, hey, this might not be mooning yet or whatever, but maybe there's a lot of really great activity here, and I believe in this ecosystem because of that. And I might make a decision based on that within my means in like a safe and responsible manner, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I mean, as we were talking about earlier on, uh, even as we're talking about, narrative-driven trading and about, fundamentals based like investing or whatever, even then, for most people, when we talk about like WAGMI and all of this stuff, um, for most people, to be honest, like if the goal is to, what's the word, become financially sustained
To
through
make it.
crypto or whatever, if the goal is to make it, investing or trading, for most people, I really don't see that as being the way that most people make it. I think that kind of finding a part of the industry that you're super interested in and have specific knowledge in and adding value and like earning money that way, whether that's like through like providing services to people or getting a job in that niche or like selling, some sort of product in that niche, is I think that so many people can like make it doing that, as opposed to trying to like make it through like trading and investing and trying not to get wrecked and all of this stuff. I think that path of just figuring out whether it's community building or data stuff or software or whatever it is, or creating art, whatever it is that you're good at. I think that kind of adding value that way consistently and on a high level is like a much more, it's not as sexy. You're not gonna like win the lottery and like wake up tomorrow and be a billionaire.
Yeah.
Like, whatever, like, hustling on a consistent basis is not gonna like, that's not just gonna moon 10,000% like overnight or whatever. So it's not as sexy. But it's like, I feel like that's a very
Yeah.
repeatable, reliable way that a lot of people can make it. And not that many people can make it like kind of trading. So yeah, I always feel like it's important to kind of make that distinction there.
Yeah, I talked
Set
about
realistic expectations.
like overlapping Venn diagrams at the beginning, like with
Yeah.
like data science and stuff, and like find your like overlapping Venn diagram like middle. However, that space is called like statistics has been a while for me, but like find your niche and try to fill it. And yeah, I guess I fully agree that that's like a way more approachable way to making it. And like I know a lot of people that are like following that way, and they're also like they're like trying to trade or invest on the side. But it's like once you shift the focus like from like I'm an investor, trader, whatever, to like I'm actually a builder, and like then you're not as like the market movements really don't face you as much anymore. You're just like, yeah, whatever, like the like I can still work here tomorrow. Like it's not going to all evaporate in one moment. And like it's just a way healthier life, I guess. Like except for like if your life goal is to become like a god tier trader, like then like by all means go for it. But it's like there's a reason not everybody is like not like society doesn't run on traders, like like
Yeah, society doesn't run on
generally not a
traders.
thing.
We're not going to solve all the blockchain problems in the blockchain space via trading. And yeah, it's just kind of like when the market goes down, if all you're doing is, if not all you're doing, but if your main focus is trading, then that can be a problem for you if you didn't make the right decision at the right time. But if you're building stuff and providing value, then you're fine, because it's kind of like I'm providing something that's valuable, and either some company or the community or some network is, paying me for that. And so it doesn't matter what's happening in the market today. Like, I'm going to continue to make money. And then it's kind of like investing kind of on a personal basis might be something that you do to grow the money that you're getting. But it's like you're going to make money regardless because you're adding something of value. And then it's just like, oh, this other thing is to help, kind of grow it. It's, I think, a much more healthy space to be in for like a lot of folk and all of that stuff.
Yeah. You were touching upon narrative-driven trading there for a second. Can you open up Dobby's dashboard, secondary market or something?
Yeah, is that Dobby's
get your
secondary market?
I think it's called secondary. Yeah, Hill Dobby. Yeah, just open this user, I guess.
Yeah, just a
Where is that?
second. There's somebody walking his.
Yep.
Did I?
No, that should be the user.
Oh, yeah. Huh?
It is not.
That's not. No, that's just
Oh,
somebody's.
oh.
Yeah, let
That's
me.
just somebody fucking the query. I
Yeah,
see, I
that's
see.
just somebody fucking the query. Yeah, there it is. That's the real one. I thought I'd been typing it in
Wow.
right, but maybe I wasn't.
Almost 2K
Secondary
stars.
market.
GG. um, yeah, I
Yeah.
just want to really quick get your take on like the whole OpenSea with this Luxware thing, or maybe like if you don't want to comment because you're like an investor in
No,
OpenSea, I
I
guess.
mean, I'm
Um,
happy to comment because, like, I mean, I'm not really like right now. I'm not like I can kind of talk about like just kind of what's going on in the numbers in kind of an unbiased
yeah,
manner, well, somewhat unbiased.
that would be great.
Um, but yeah, kind of looking at OpenSea and Luxra at the moment, this crazy activity that we're getting right now at the beginning of the year, impossible to ignore. Um, One of the things that of course, like you guys talked about last week was the issue of when you introduce a token super early to a marketplace to incentivize trading, then you get a lot of wash trading activity. And I think that yeah, one of the points that you looked at last time was that there's this insane kind of matchup in the volumes, but that the kind of the actual active user base of LuxRare is very small compared to OpenSea, which would indicate that it's not that everybody is now trading on LuxRare, it's that there are a few people trading on LuxRare, but that incentivized to just keep sending things between each other to kind of farm the token. And I think that there's kind of there's historical context there, because if we kind of look at the history of Rarible and the Rari token. In 2020, like there was a period of time around the end of 2020. I still have the
Mhm.
OpenSea dashboard there. There's a 10. Was it? Sorry. Yeah, was it 10 in 2020? So that was 4. Yeah, 4 million. Just a second. That was 4 million. That was it was the volume there. Uh, 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 yeah, kind of around the time of um, October 2020, Rarible was doing much more volume than OpenSea. I
Yeah.
mean, for back then we were talking about millions. Now we're talking about billions.
Yeah.
But like back then, Rarible was doing many more millions in trading volume than OpenSea. Partly driven by the fact that people were like, yeah, Rari token. There's a token. People were doing kind of wash trading on Rarible to kind of farm the Rari token, and we had a very kind of similar situation happening there. But we kind of all know what happened in the long term with now OpenSea at this point. This month is going to be, it's not even over yet, and it's already going to be the biggest month for OpenSea of all time,
Yep.
kind of doing 4 billion in trading volume in a month. Whereas this month Rarible's trading volume is hovering in the millions still,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of like kind of coming out of the gate with a token. People just love free money. What can we say? It's just kind of like
Yeah.
it's great for attracting really strong initial activity. Even if not all of that activity is authentic, but it doesn't. But historically at least it doesn't mean that kind of because not all of that activity is authentic. It doesn't really equate necessarily to long-term success, because if people are using a platform primarily to kind of farm a token, then if the value of that token goes down eventually as like more and more of it enters the supply, and people were here for the token as opposed to being here because they love the platform and they wanted to
Mhm.
use the platform, um, then you don't then you kind of don't really necessarily get long-term success. Now, I mean, that isn't to say that there isn't space for competition with OpenSea. I mean, right now, OpenSea has, last year, had like 95% plus market share. That's definitely not going to be the case forever. I mean, there are going to be more and more competitors that bring their own take on things, have their own advantages and disadvantages, and kind of have, somewhat reduce OpenSea's market share. Although I believe that OpenSea will still remain, a top platform and a leader in the space. So there will definitely be, some diversification there. But I'm skeptical of kind of the model of kind of, yeah, going out the gate immediately with the token, because although a lot of like folk on crypto Twitter will say that like all we want is a token, just give us a token and we'll kill OpenSea or whatever it is that people say.
Yeah.
Although people say that, it's kind of always really kind of been the case that teams that are focusing on building a great product that people would want to use regardless of whether or not they're being incentivized, and like really kind of like have a solid product there, and then kind of progressively decentralize to the community and give ownership to the community, and in true kind of Web3 values type manner. If that is what they desire to um, do a lot better than teams that have that kind of distraction of when Moon. What devs please help us. Devs do something from day one.
I need devs to do something. It's yeah, yeah. Like we've all
I'm
been
overlisted.
yeah yeah, we can recite the whole copy pasta now, I guess, but we better not. I think.
Yeah, yeah,
What was I gonna say? Yeah, introducing a token early, or like even like introducing a token at all into a system, like it always brings a lot of noise. And like if you just
yeah,
want to build a good product, and like OpenSea is an amazing product. Like of course,
yeah,
like they had their issues, like in the like especially in the recent days with like the order canceling and stuff. But like if you look at like just objectively like what OpenSea has been able to accomplish like in the last year, like everybody looking in from like outside of our industry like would be like, holy shit, this company's amazing. Like they've managed to like basically solve all of these problems, like in like they're still like they're operational like now. Like it's not like they're like down 24/7 or there's like huge issues within the platform. It's just like it could be better, of course, but it's a product in growth. Like that's something that like I can say about Dune as well. Like there's a lot of things about Dune that could be better today, but like it just takes time to build stuff, and like it takes time to scale teams, and like in general, like yeah, I yeah, it's like OpenSea gets a lot of hate, but it's like, is it really warranted, or do people really just want like a free airdrop? Like, which
yeah.
yeah, it's like
And it's kind of like you kind of look at the charts, and they go, we're going all the way back to 2018. Like it's just kind of like no, for years and years and years when nobody cared about NFTs or knew what NFTs were, or like, oh,
yeah,
CryptoKitties, what is that? That's weird. These guys were like putting in the work, kind of building this platform so that we could basically have the NFT market that we have today. Like the NFT market that we have today doesn't exist if the OpenSea team decided, like after 2 years of work
yep,
in 2020, that like, oh, we've been grinding day and night, nobody cares, we're going to give up. Like if they'd given up here, then NFTs would not be trading billions of dollars in January. So I
yeah,
mean, we kind of owe a lot to them. And also, it is a great product. It has its issues, but in terms of discoverability, like a lot of people don't realize that people would just kind of assume that, you just fork the contract or whatever, make another marketplace.
yeah,
But people underestimate the amount of custom work that the OpenSea team has done to make discoverability work on that platform. In terms of, say Meebits gets released, the Meebits metadata is structured differently to the metadata of other projects. The OpenSea team has to go in and do custom work to make sure that like you can search by all of the Meebits traits, and like you don't see that work happening in the back end. But it's like over the years, OpenSea has done like a ton of really kind of custom kind of work to make sure that like all of these traits and features and data points are searchable within the platform, and that's work that cannot very easily be replicated. And there's also the very reasonable point that there was kind of growth happening, very steady growth over the course of kind of those first 3 years, as we can kind of see from the charts. But 2021 was insane. Like 2021,
yes,
OpenSea, like in terms of like the number of active users and like the trading volume, I think that I checked the number at some point. And I think 2021 was like 2,600% year-over-year growth for OpenSea. And I feel like most people, like, what do you think it would be like if you showed up at work tomorrow and your like workload was suddenly 2,600% more this year than it was last year? Like, would you be able to like perform? Like, it's just the amount of stuff that you'd have to do just to keep things from falling apart before you even talk about like adding on new features is it's a crazy amount of work. And of course, like people will say then like, oh, but they earned a bunch of money. Like earning a bunch of money is not an immediate fix, because scaling a platform that's getting millions of monthly visits is not as easy as just like insert money and press more server button or something on AWS. And like hiring a bigger team is not as simple as, oh, here's a bucket of talented mission-driven colleagues who already have experience in the crypto space. Just insert money and just pick some people out of the box. It's like all of that stuff takes time. And so like they've started doing a bunch of work that we'll start to see the benefits of now and only now and kind of moving forward and stuff. So yeah, those are my kind of thoughts about OpenSea and about LooksRare and about how that kind of how the market will probably change over time.
I think I got one last question for you. We're already past an hour. I hope that's all right for you.
Yeah, it's all good.
What do you think? What do you make of the whole like Twitter now? Like Twitter has allowed, like for anyone not in the news, Twitter has allowed to verify NFT profile pictures, or like basically you can verify a picture on Twitter that, oh man, like you can verify that you own an NFT on Twitter now.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's like the one sentence. What do you make of that? Like, is that like will this be a fundamental like moment where like the rest of the world like realizes like, hey, crypto is actually a thing, and like digital ownership is actually like a huge thing, or like do you think like Twitter will like kind of look back at this in like 12 months and be like, oh, this was a fun experiment, but like whatever?
Will it be like Fleets? Remember
like...
Fleets? Yeah, I think that it's a super interesting question. I think that Twitter, integrating NFTs is huge. It's just, the scale of the kind of exposure is insane, because people are already hearing about NFTs, right? Because I mean, if you were alive in March in 2021, you turned on the news at some point and you probably heard that this artist who you'd previously never heard of became one of the highest selling artists of all time, Beeple, when they had the $69 million sale. And you might have, seen like, oh, when they did a sketch about NFTs on SNL or on South Park or whatever. So people were aware that NFTs were happening. But then, with this new integration, which I think is still only live in, say, the US and a few countries. But I mean, even then, like, this is a new integration. Like, there are millions of people who like woke up one day and opened Twitter and were like, NFTs? What's that? What does that mean? And it's kind of like, there's definitely controversy around it, but I think that, it's just doing a lot of work in exposing a lot more people to the space. And, whether or not people think it's a bad thing or it's a good thing, it's just, I think that it's moments like this are very interesting for kind of onboarding, lots of new folk who might have tangentially have heard about NFTs, might have tangentially been hearing about crypto, but not have been confronted with it in their day-to-day interactions with things. It's like, this is just like another another step forward in making it very hard to ignore what's going on.
Yeah.
Whether or not like the actual like way that the feature was implemented with the hexagons is the best way to do it, or needing to get Twitter blue and all of that is the best way to do it. Like, I don't really have any strong opinions on that, and I think that it'll evolve over time. But I'm a big fan of anything that kind of helps to expose crypto to the next million people and the next billion people after that. So I think that
They
it's
have to buy
interesting
our
for that
bags.
reason.
No, it's like
That's funny.
we need to teach them the principles of digital ownership, because it's an important concept for
Buying
artists
our
to be
bags.
able to verify their stuff online. Like,
Yes, to to create a
that's
new
definitely the
business
point.
model for creatives on the internet to be able to support themselves and such. Of course, of course. But then, I mean, even going, even going further than that, just like, just kind of exposing people to the space, because it is going to change the way that everybody in the world interacts. I mean, I feel like um, there are so many people who are hearing about NFTs now who, because they're hearing about NFTs, might start to learn about DeFi, for instance. And, there's just one of the interesting things that I find is that there are so many people, most of the people engaged in the crypto space right now are based in, like, say, the UK or the US, Australia, countries like that. Where the financial system is corrupt and bad, but it generally works. Like, you can get like a
Yeah.
savings account, that pays you interest. You can like take out a loan and stuff. But I'm from Ghana. In West, when I'm from West Africa, and like most people where I'm from, cannot do those things. Like, you cannot get a savings account that pays you interest if you are an average Ghanaian making an average Ghanaian income, and you cannot get a loan that is like a single digit APR and such, and all of these things. And so I feel like having people to buy our bags would be nice, but but it's also like, it's also, I'm also really excited to see kind of see the space spread to the extent whereby people can, what's the word, plug into like a global financial system, because their own local financial systems aren't working, and like really like get like life changing opportunities through that by like having access to like very basic financial stuff. And we're far off from there. There's like UX problems that need to be solved. There are scaling problems that need to be solved. There's like all sorts of stuff that needs to be solved. But that's kind of the long term vision that I always kind of look towards when it comes to adoption.
Yeah, I guess also exposing these people to a global workforce is also an interesting. We have some people in the Dune community who are um, who are from places where there's no where there's no job opportunities sometimes even, and like they can pick up work on Dune as freelancers, and they can go and work like in this global economy where nobody really cares if you're if you're a horse from Germany or like, like I don't know, a frog from Zimbabwe. Like it just doesn't it just doesn't matter. Like nobody's gonna look at your VC or like whatever, like, your like skin color, your culture, your religion. It's just like you do the work and you get paid. And like crypto enables it in some form, because like I wouldn't know how to send a frog in Zimbabwe money otherwise than like using stable coins. And it's like
Yeah.
that's also, I think that's also like a factor that shouldn't be dismissed basically. I think that's a really interesting force at play here as well. And like of course, like if I'm saying like they're gonna buy my bags, like that's not really. I don't think that's what like we both mean. Like we joke
I
about
know.
it,
I mean,
but
not
like
joking, but yeah, it would also be nice if they bought our
it's
bags. It would also be nice.
it's the adoption of a like better financial, or like basically like a financial rails for the internet. And I think that's what
Yeah.
we are all like working towards together here. And it's also like I take huge pride in that, like being able to work on this and like making blockchain data more accessible to people, and like trying to make the space more transparent and like educating new users. It's it's a wonderful journey. And like that's also the cool thing about crypto. I think that it's that we are all aligned on this thing. Basically, we're all saying like, hey, the current system sucks, like let's build something better. And it's like whether I meet you here in this podcast, or like I have meetings with teams to like show them Dune, or like with the Dune Wizard, like we're all aligned on that one thing, and like that makes working crypto like a lot of fun. Like it's so amazing to like work in this space and see like all the smart people collaborating, really. Like cooperation and collaboration is like it's so much fun.
It's great. It's just like a global network of folk exchanging value, and it's like if you have something to of value to give to the network, something that people want, no matter where you are in the world, like you're gonna receive value for that. Like you provide value, you get value back, and there's really like a system there that that's very meritocratic, that I'm a big fan of, and it's awesome to see like all of the amazing stuff that's been enabled by it.
Yeah, this is a beautiful end. I think
Good ending. Yeah.
I will like let's look in the chat real quick and see if we have Kofi, inspiring stuff. How do you fact check in this space?
How do you fact check? So, I mean, it depends on the fact in question. I mean, of course, if somebody is like throwing around some sort of crazy numbers, on Twitter, Dune is always a great place to check whether or not those numbers are true. But, of course, not everything is purely stats wise. If there is say a new protocol that comes up that claims to be able to say, oh, we're an AMM that has no impermanent loss. You should kind of be like, how is that possible that you don't have impermanent loss? What are you doing in order to provide that? There's a kind of a lot of work that has to be done in terms of, going out and reading the white papers, reading the documentation. And, if you're not technical, that can be, what's the word? That can feel confronting sometimes, but I promise that like if you just kind of put in the work and ask questions, people are always happy to answer questions in the community, and just kind of do that research for yourself. You can you can kind of do a lot to verify whether or not like certain claims that people make about whether or not certain things are possible is true, and find out the pros and cons of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it really all comes down to doing your own research, but at least statistics-wise, Dune is always your friend.
Yeah. I might add to that it always helps to have like a network of people around you who are like kind of on the same path, and like being able to talk things. Like there's like the native community of that project, but then like maybe you have your own tribe in crypto as well, where it's like a group of like friends or like people you meet along the way, basically. Like always try to like build a network, connect with them, and like try to make sense of this whole space together. I think that that would really help a lot of people out, because yeah, I hear about a lot of people who are like, I don't know, they're basically doing this alone, and it's like it's way harder to play live in single player than multiplayer. Like I think there's like great avenues, like in every Discord, like there's a core group of people, and like just try to DM them, try to like build a network. Like there's opportunities. Like just go out there and find friends. It's like I yeah, really, like I think that's like commenting on the fact checking, like I think like a lot of times it just is very useful to have like a support network or people you can run stuff by, and like try to make sense of that together.
100%. 100%.
What else do we have? How do you select what makes it in the newsletter?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I first started doing the newsletter, everything was very much purely driven by, I had a bunch of questions about the space, in terms of, things like we all were talking about all of these whales buying bags on Twitter. How many whales are there actually in the NFT space? Or we talk about, Foundation is like a cool NFT marketplace. Like, what's happening on Foundation? So I was really starting off just answering a lot of my own questions, and then as time passed, you know you also, in sharing stuff, get a gauge on what questions people are asking based on like the things that you put out, and that informs future newsletters and such. So yeah, it's just constant, curiosity rabbit hole type thing is kind of what helps determine what I write about.
Yeah, seems. Yeah, I can't comment on this answer. Like, seems reasonable. I hope that question's answered sufficiently. What do you think will be the number of traders on OpenSea by the end of 22 based on the trends, numbers, gut feeling? Oh man, take out your glass ball, man. Like, what does the magic ball say?
I mean, if I could predict stats to that level of accuracy, then I'd be, we'd be having this conversation in person. I'd have flown us out to our private island with my future seeking skills. I mean, one of the interesting things. This is a complete diversion. One of the interesting things about doing a bunch of data analysis is that people always will ask you to predict stuff, and it's kind of like, really, data is great for seeing what's going on, like the reality of what's going on in the market and what has happened in the past, have historical context. But anybody telling you that they can like give you accurate end of year price prediction or whatever is bullshitting. There's no one can really do that accurately. But I mean, the way things are going, I think that it's reasonable to kind of bet that end of 2022, like we might see like OpenSea monthly active traders in terms of wallets that are actually buying and selling stuff move from the hundreds of thousands into the millions. I think that that's a very that's a very feasible jump to make. But again, you should be very distrustful of people who claim to be able to make future predictions. Because if they could make future predictions, then they would not be telling you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's one more question, which is what do you think about Azukis? I don't know if somebody's trying to show the specs here. Maybe Azukis is something interesting. Like
Somebody is trying to show their bags. Yeah, Zuki is like a PFP project. I saw it. I've seen people. It's one of those things that like never heard a thing about it, and then woke up one day and it was everybody's profile picture. I think they look kind of cool. To be honest, I like the art style. Whether or not that's going to be a long-term thing or a short-term thing,
yeah,
I don't know. But right now they seem to be doing great. I think that the floor price has pumped a lot. So great for those people who are in on that.
Yeah, it's like it's some kind like it's the same thing you can say about every PFU collection. It's like, yeah, I think it looks cool, and like good luck, like
good luck, man. Good luck.
Like case closed. It's like you never know what happens really.
Yeah.
I think that's it for the questions. Yeah, thanks for all the live listeners. I'll upload this in a second, and yeah, thanks so much, Kofi, for taking the time. Thanks for being a great Dune wizard, like also like a helpful community member, like during the course. Like I just can't thank you. Like we as the whole Dune team, like we can't thank you enough for like being a super user, wizard, a stellar community member. You will receive swag from us soon. Oh, this should actually be a thing. Like I should get like special like podcast mugs or something.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. But yeah, happy to be involved. Gotten so much out of Dune, and yeah, looking forward to another year of awesome Wizard Wand activity.
Yes. See ya, man. Bye bye.
See ya. Have a good one.